Today, I'm speaking with a man who you've most likely seen or heard from whenever you've turned on a Matchroom Boxing fight week or fight night over the past few years. Additionally, if you're a Yankee fan like myself, you've definitely heard his voice on WFAN or seen him on the Yes Network. Today, I'm happy to introduce the one and only Justin Shackil. Justin, thank you for joining me. And how are you doing today?
Luke, I appreciate it. I'm doing great. And I know you're from the Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex, so I had to rock my Bucky's t-shirt this afternoon.
Absolutely. That's like a myth for a lot of my friends who are up in Syracuse. They're like, is there really like a gas station like Bucky's that's huge? I'm like, yes, like it is. You got to see it to believe it.
Yes, you do. That's a perfect way to sum it up. I was floored when I made my first excursion into a Bucky's. It's a gas station on steroids.
Oh, 100%. It is a one-time experience, absolutely. But Justin, obviously, I mentioned boxing for you. I'd love to ask people who are in boxing, boxing fans themselves, how they got into the sport, because I feel like a lot of the times in the sport, it's maybe one fight or one fighter that you just look back on and say, this is what got me into the sport. Is that the case for you, or was it just a culmination of different things that got you into the sport?
I would say it was the latter for sure. Growing up, I enjoyed the big fights. I loved the pay-per-view sit in front of the TV with family and friends atmosphere for sure. I loved watching the Mike Tyson pay-per-views and I wouldn't say I was a diehard boxing fan, but I really enjoyed watching some of the bigger names. Like I said, Tyson, loved Arturo Gatti. I'm from New Jersey, so there's
Mhm.
that Jersey connection of Floyd Mayweather, obviously. But it wasn't until I got to college, really. I wrestled growing up, so I really loved wrestling. And then when I got to college and got out of college, I was always looking for different ways to stay fit and kind of similar to that wrestling regimen without actually doing wrestling because I didn't want to get beat up. I didn't want my body to have these random bruises on it. It was taxing, and naturally I found boxing. Right.
Mhm.
So I started boxing for a fitness hobby, and
Mhm.
I just became more and more involved in it. I would spar, and I knew I could never really compete because I wanted to try and have a career in front of a camera. So how could I justify possibly breaking my nose or getting roughed up
Mhm.
in that regard and try and be on camera? But I always told myself I eventually want to try and get into boxing broadcasting. I think it's a niche sport, especially in America. And I told myself if I had ever had the opportunity, I would jump at it and I thought about entering different ways, but it's really tough to get your foot in the door in a sport like this because you try and start in club shows, and club shows are off all most of the time, uh, kind of helter skelter. Like there's no rhyme or reason to it, so it was tough. I had started my career journey. I've been working in baseball since graduating college in one way or another. I was working for the NBA. I was working on the radio in New York City and on Sirius XM. And ironically, a colleague of mine at the Yes Network, she had a friend who was the lead counsel for Lou DiBella and DiBella Entertainment. And
Mhm.
Lou's, Hall of Fame boxing promoter and
That's
former
right.
head of HBO pay-per-view, which is just a legend in the sport.
Mhm.
And they needed someone to broadcast their long-running New York club show, Broadway Boxing, and that's how I got my foot in the door. So Lou gave me my start, and from there, I told myself, all right, let me get maybe 10 to 15 shows under my belt and then try and aspire for bigger assignments, larger responsibilities. And that's how it kind of worked. Ran into COVID during that
Mhm.
period. And I told myself, all right, well, I have enough footage. Everything's kind of slow right now. Just go for it. And
Mhm.
I went out and I sent my stuff to the big four at the time, which was Matchroom, Golden Boy, PBC, and Top Rank. And
Mhm.
I would send up emails with my work in it, and I would follow up with all four of the big promoters weekly. I told myself, I don't care if I'm being a pest. I have nothing to lose at this
Mhm.
point. And I would literally send a follow up every Thursday, Luke, to these companies. Never heard back from any of them until Matchroom needed a fill in opportunity. And this was February 5th, 2022. And if you're a really hardcore boxing freak, you know that's when Jesse Bam Rodriguez beat Carlos Cuadras to
Mhm.
become WBC super flyweight champ, and I filled in on that show. And thankfully and luckily, they've asked me back ever since. So I've enjoyed this 3.5+ year run with Matchroom. Great people working with Matchroom, working on the zone, working some of these big events. I That's the long-winded answer for you and how I got my start in boxing.
No, definitely. What a fighter to start your career too with Matchroom. Bam Rodriguez. I'll ask you
Yeah,
about him a little bit later. He's incredible. But just going back to that colleague at the Yes Network, was it just something where they were like, "Hey, are you a boxing? You're a boxing fan. Would you like, I've seen you do broadcasting. Do you think you could give this a try?" And then you just jumped at the opportunity.
that's literally how it went, Luke. It was there. Do you have any interest in calling boxing? And it was like she was reading my mind. And I was like, yeah. Why? What do you know? What do you have?
Hmm.
And she, she connected me with a guy by the name of Alex Dombroff, who's now a dear friend
Hmm.
and just a salt of the earth human being. And he's lead counsel, for as far as boxing lawyers go. He's at the top of the list in the industry, and that's literally how it started. And I got my foot in the door because baseball brought me to boxing.
That's incredible. And
Yeah,
someone, obviously entering the industry, that's what I've heard. Right place, right time, and jumping at an opportunity. And your situation speaks to it in volumes.
100%. You're always told, never say no. You are always told you never know what one opportunity can lead to. You, you always have to be on your A game because you never know who's watching.
Mhm.
All of that is blended in together with the type of opportunity that was presented to me to get my start in boxing. So, yeah, it felt like someone was reading my mind, but also, again, you just never know when an opportunity is going to come along.
Definitely. When you look at baseball and boxing broadcasting, is there anything different for you? Obviously, the sports are very different, but maybe is it preparation? Do you prepare for each differently? Or are there similarities or differences between those two sports?
I would say the similarities are that there are great stories
Hmm.
between the two sports and the athletes that are in the sport. I do not believe that you will get better storytelling than the type that you can tell in boxing. And what do we always hear about with baseball broadcasting? Oh, there's a lot of storytelling involved. That's true because there's,
Hmm.
even with the pitch clock, there's still a lot of dead time and time to allow yourself to tell terrific stories of the athletes that you're covering. So in a way, they're similar that way. I would say boxers are more accessible and you
Yeah.
want to try and take advantage of that. Both sports, you want to deep dive as much as you can, whether it be online, whether it be talking to people that are close to the athletes, whether it be the athletes themselves. So there are similar ways to prepare. I I think just there is no substitute for getting in front of the athletes themselves
Mhm.
and asking questions to he or she and having that FaceTime with them, with their trainers, with their promoters, their managers, the people that are around them. Same thing with baseball players. Um, but I think it's a little bit more intimate with boxers, and I think that's part of the reason why their stories are so much more magnificent to tell. Also, because what
Mhm.
90% of the fighters are forced to fight, really, in terms of making a living. Very, very
Mhm.
rare you come across a boxer who didn't have to fight to support themselves. So when you add that element in, naturally, their stories are going to be great to tell. Where did they come from? How did they get here? What was their struggle like?
Mhm.
Boxing is unique in that sense.
Absolutely. And when talking to fighters in particular, I've always wondered this, especially during a fight week. Say you're in a fight week and you're talking to these fighters. Obviously, this is that week, not only their Super Bowl, but emotions are going to be running high, whether it's a weight cut, just pressure on them. How do you go about talking to boxers? Because sometimes, a question you ask them, a month later and they get a perfectly fine response, could set them off. How do you go about navigating boxers around that fight week or even fight night?
You're right. Fight week is pretty tense because of the weight cutting
Hmm.
element. And you know that they don't want to be out there doing the interviews, but it's part of being a professional. It's
Yep.
part of what you sign up for, and you have to do it, plain and simple.
Hmm.
Um, I, I've I've grown into telling myself, look, just ask your pointed questions. Ask directly what you want to know. It's going to take a lot really to offend an athlete, even in this day and age, if you ask it whatever question, whatever piece of info you want to find out, if you ask it in an appropriate manner. I often feel like forming the most pointed, shortest question is going to elicit the best possible answer.
Mhm.
And I try and not to waste time by asking questions that I probably already know the answer to. So
Mhm.
that's what I take within me within fight week. Also now, just given the weirdness of scheduling when I'm trying to juggle a baseball and boxing schedule at the same time, I try and get my boxing interviews ahead of fight week now. So if
Mhm.
people I work with can possibly help me out and coordinate interviews over a Zoom or a phone call, maybe the week before fight week, that
Mhm.
helps a lot too. And look, other than something massive happening, nothing's really going to change between uh, fight week or 7 days before fight week or fight night. So I
Mhm.
try and take advantage of that time that working for the promotion and the broadcast company, it allows me to kind of have that type of access.
Gotcha. Throughout your career with Matchroom, has there been a lead up to a fight? I know you mentioned you started February 2022. Has there been a lead up to the fight that has absolutely been your favorite, whether it be trash talk, just promotion, that you look back on and say, that was a fun fight week to be a part of?
I would say maybe 3 months in, we had Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano won at Madison Square Garden, and that was an electric fight week. The fight night, I would say that's probably the best fight I've ever seen live in terms of event. I mean, half of
Mhm.
Madison Square Garden, which again, I'm from northern New Jersey. I'm 15 miles away from New York City. I consider
Mhm.
Madison Square Garden by and large my hometown arena,
Yeah.
right? You that
Mhm.
night, it felt like I was not in America. Half of it was split with Irish fans, half of it with Puerto Rican fans. And
Mhm.
to have two women make up that crowd is remarkable. And that's probably the best fight atmosphere I've ever been in. And the week leading up to it, I mean, we were still doing like the Wednesday of fight week, we were doing live workout days.
Mhm.
Thursday we had our press conference. Friday our weigh-in show. Then Saturday night is fight night. So that one sticks out the most. Also because the very next week was Canelo Bivol. So we had
Yeah.
back-to-back huge fight weeks.
Oh,
One in New York
absolutely.
City, one in Las Vegas, and it was a great 2 week stretch. So when I look back
Mhm.
on it, that's definitely a fond fight week, 2 week period right there. That really can't be replicated. Other ones, I would say that rank behind that maybe Bam Sonny Edwards, which was
Yeah.
what June June 2023. December 2023,
It's
right? It was
mhm.
either mid year or late in the year. I can't remember,
Mhm.
but that was great because there was a lot of trash talk
Mhm.
um, from Sunny's side, obviously, and a lot of people from the UK came over, and for whatever reason, whenever Bam fights, you're always going to bring up questions like, "Hey, is he going to have enough? Did he meet
Mhm.
his match here?" And at that time, you were having that a lot, and Sonny really brought his A game in terms of promoting the fight. So the back and forth of the fight week, that was a good one as well.
Awesome. Quickly, could you mention talk about the atmosphere? Because I have friends who are not big into boxing at all, and I say, hey, I've never met a sports atmosphere like I have when I've gone to a big time fight. I talked to Brian Campbell before, and he talked about the 10 minutes where the national anthems, ring walks, fighter introductions, and then the first bell is unlike anything. And can you just maybe compare, a big time fight week? You've talked about a Canelo fight week and the atmosphere in the arena compared to, obviously the Yankees went to the World Series last year. Just, relay it to other sports, boxing atmospheres, to, baseball big time playoff games.
It's funny that you mentioned this because this is probably the big reason why I love stepping in and out of the baseball world to go cover boxing and then jump back in.
Mhm.
Boxing's so different from the four major North American sports
Yep.
that we've kind of been accustomed to and exposed to, and we grew up on. And I would say to an American that is unfamiliar with boxing, it is so unique because there is a global feel to it, and there is a type of nationalism that comes with it, where you could be in an arena where it's a Mexican versus a Nicaraguan, and half the arena has so much pride for Mexico, the other half has so much pride for Nicaragua, and you don't see that anywhere in the four major North American sports.
Hmm.
So there's a lot that has to do with it with one's country. I love that element to it, and I think it spruces up the fight atmosphere. I particularly am not a big Las Vegas person, but I love Las Vegas during
Hmm.
fight week. The energy that's in there, especially for, like we were talking about, a Canelo event.
Yeah.
Um, Mexican fight fans are incredible,
Hmm.
and they know how to bring the party. They know how to bring the energy to the event.
Hmm.
And there is just something that you, again, are not going to find in an NBA arena, baseball, an NFL stadium that is contained within fight week or fight night in the arena. It is so electric and frenetic. You
Hmm.
can't help but be swarmed up in the energy. And I would say if you are looking at boxing from an outsider's view, allow yourself a moment to maybe tune into a Canelo Crawford coming up next month,
Hmm.
and just focus on the energy, because that global energy, that global electricity, I think for me is a huge reason why boxing has me in its grasp.
100%. That's a fight that I'm telling my friends that aren't boxing fans tune
Yeah.
in. And perfect segue. I want to talk about a few current boxing topics. And that fight in particular, you mentioned, hey, you were part of a couple Canelo fight weeks. One, can you talk about what fight week might like? Excuse me, what it might be like in Las Vegas come September? And do you have a prediction for that fight?
I go back and forth with the prediction because, well,
Hmm.
like a year and a half, 2 years ago, I never thought the fight would be made because it just didn't
Right.
make sense. And the more and
Hmm.
more as time went on, it makes more and more sense. And
Yeah.
it is so tough to pick a winner for that one. And I would say, what was the first part of the question? What we could expect
Yeah,
for
like
fight
just
week atmosphere? Yeah,
fight week. Yep, exactly.
I mean, you have Allegiant Stadium, which this is a perfect matchup to bring boxing into that facility for sure.
Hmm.
It's Mexican Independence Day weekend. Canelo always fights around that time of year. You know his fan base will be there. You know, for Bud Crawford, the hardcore boxing fan base in America, and maybe even the casual fan base too, they are going to be there. Um,
Hmm.
I am excited to see what it looks like when it's all blended together,
Yeah.
because you have two fighters that do draw a crowd whenever they fight, and now
Hmm.
you're bringing them together. It's like a massive clash, and then um, you have the TKO element in all of it. Dana White
Yep.
is promoting his first ever boxing event, and it's the most highly anticipated matchup now of the year between these two superstars. So how is the TKO with I guess the UFC seasoning on it? Like, what is that all going to look like? That is
Mhm.
making it intriguing as well. How can they put their stamp on this event? Uh, the people involved with TKO, like they don't lose often, so you have to bet on them to succeed
Mhm.
here. And I'm just really curious and interested on how it's all going to look, because I think you have all the right ingredients to have a mega event coming up in about a month's time. And as for a prediction, I don't want to cop out and say I can't give one right now, but my gosh, I it's like a combination of I truly don't know, and I also I want to think about it more.
Mhm.
Um, oh my gosh, like am I really gonna choose against Canelo when you have a
Mhm.
fighter jumping up multiple weight classes, and you're telling me that he's gonna what? He's gonna hurt and discomfort Canelo Alvarez? What? Like Canelo like looks like a guy who has like a tire around his neck. Like he's so strong, and I've you maybe you've seen him um outbox, but you've never seen him hurt. And if you're not hurting him, can you really outbox him? Like, well, then, yeah, Bud Crawford could be the guy. Like, he just goes back and forth all the time. So I'm sorry to say, like, I haven't thought about it as deeply as I probably should to give a prediction just yet. And it's so tough. It's a pick 'em for me at this moment.
No, I'm the same way. Every day it feels like, one day I'm leaning Canelo, the next I'm leaning Bud
Yeah.
Crawford. And for the exact reason, like you said, Canelo, how could I pick against him going up two weight classes? Crawford is going up two weight classes. But as myself, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I would say the big one of the drawbacks that I do have with Bud Crawford is that for me, he doesn't fight often enough.
Yep.
And I know he's in the latter stages of his career, and maybe that's by design that you're slowing down, preserving what you need to be terrific, because to me, he's still a top three pound for pound fighter. But at the same time, Canelo Alvarez still fights twice a year.
Yep.
And I think activity does matter. And I'm curious to see what version of Bud Crawford we get, because we don't know. Like,
Hmm.
we could say all of this stuff and wax poetic about Terrence Crawford, and rightfully so. It's been a while since he's been in the. It's been a year,
Yep.
and he didn't look unstoppable against Israel Madrimov. So, um, you always have to have that question when Crawford fights every 12, 13, 14 months.
Yeah, as an Earl Spence fan, I know I'll
Yeah.
never doubt Bud Crawford again. So that's going to be a fun fight. We talked about Bam Rodriguez a little earlier. Can
Mhm.
you just talk about how special Bam is? He's only 25, and it's at a point where if he's not in your top five pound for pound rankings, you might have to redo your ranking. He's just been that great, and he has so much more to go in his career.
You mentioned he's 25, so when I say what I'm about to say, it sounds so hyperbolic, but I think he's a Hall of Famer in the making. I
Hmm.
mean, I don't also, I mean, he talks about not being long for the sport as well. He talked about wanting to be out by age 30. I don't know, when you're facing the actual situation head on, how you're going to feel. But if that's the case, I mean, what a resume he's already completed with 5 more years to go. And uh, I think he's getting better. I mean,
Hmm.
it's wacky to say, because when you watch him up close, the angles, and I mean, he has like balletic footwork, and that will always stand out to me the most. But his power's for real. I mean, there's so many attributes that we don't have enough time to talk to where that you can list about him. But I told you, like, my first event with Matchroom and DAZN was that night where he won his first title. I have not missed a BAM fight since. And I I really do believe, as the stakes get higher, he has this innate ability to lock in deeper into what
Hmm.
his focus and concentration should be. So I think whenever you put a guy in front of him that's a questionable challenge, and it's happened since he beat Quadras that night, right? In the very next fight, he
Hmm.
had to take on Sarungvasai. Oh, this is
Hmm.
Sarungvasai. He's got some serious power. Bam put him to sleep. Um, who came up next? Well, he had a couple of defenses after that. He fought on the Canelo Triple G undercard, which
Yep.
I think was Israel Gonzalez, and it probably was his most challenging fight within this run. But people have to realize, like, he fought what, like, four times in like an 8, 9 month period.
Yeah.
I think that's accurate. Um,
Hmm.
I mean, what did you want the kid to do at that point? That's really taxing on the body. He fought half a fight with a broken jaw. Like, I think
Hmm.
he's been as tested as anyone can be tested within these weight classes. Obviously, Inoue is the big fish. I think you're eventually going to see it. Maybe a year ago, I would have said, oh, man, all right, that's going to be a real challenge for Bam. I actually think now, like, if you're able to make that fight soon, and the trajectory that Bam is on, I think Bam's going to beat Inoue whenever
Yeah.
it does happen. Um,
Hmm.
I just think he's getting better. And like you said,
Yeah.
he's 25. I don't know if he's entered the peak of his prime yet. I don't believe he has. So I think if you see how this is marinating, and see how the weight classes come along, the timing might be absolutely perfect down the road for Bam Rodriguez when he and Naoya Inoue eventually meet up.
Talk about a mega fight. That one
Yeah.
would be I can't, if that happens, and I hope it does in the future. That would be incredible. Justin, we're in August here of 2025. If you had three fights you could make before the end of the year or early 2026, what would those three fights be?
Oh man, this is fun. No one ever asked me these questions. I would say definitely number one would be Boots Ennis and Virgil Ortiz Jr.
Yes. Hmm.
I think that's a Las Vegas fight for sure. MGM Grand. I think that's it's look the Saudi Arabia's his excellency. They've all done fabulous work for the sport recently, but that's a fight that needs to be taking place on American
Yes.
soil. So I would
Hmm.
say that's number one. Two would be Bivol Better Be of three.
Yep.
And the third fight, uh, I guess it would be Shakur and Tank
Hmm.
at this moment. I mean, right on the spot. If you're not making, I can't think too deeply about it. If that's the case, well, then I guess that's right at the top of my mind. So yeah, Shakur
Right.
and Tank Davis. Those are my three.
Great three. And I'm glad you said Virgil and Boots because I think that's a top three fight in the sport. I
Yeah,
think those guys, I mean, they were destined to fight at 47, then Virgil couldn't make the weight. And now at 54, I think it's the perfect time. And it's one of those fights of, like you said, if it's in Vegas or in the US, that's one of them where I might have to travel to go see that because that is a historical, legendary night in the making, I believe.
I think so. I think look, Boots fills up Philly. I think Virgil has
Yep.
a great fan base in the Dallas Fort Worth area
Yep.
where you're from. Uh,
Hmm.
but I think a neutral site in Vegas, MGM Grand Garden Arena, I think both fighters would eat up the platform and the stage to be on that type of event. And I mean, it could happen. Obviously, both are fighting under the DAZN banner. So
Yep.
I hope that and look, it's being talked about. I hope within the next year we'll have seen that fight. I think that's out of the three that I was talking about. I think that's most realistic to see
So,
uh, soon. So
yeah.
I think the trilogy fight with Beeble and Better Biev could happen, but I think Boots and Ortiz might happen first.
Can't wait for
Yeah.
that one. Just in the next 5 years, are there any names that you look at? Hey, these are going to be the guys that take over the sport. I know we've named some: Bam Rodriguez,
Yeah.
Virgil Boots, any others.
I love Moses Atama. I'm
Yep.
looking forward to watching him again in a couple of weeks. August is usually like a down period in boxing. I was
Hmm.
having this discussion with someone at Matchroom recently. Like people go on vacation, they lay low in August. It's not the case anymore. So
Yeah.
either they're working for fights in August or for
Mhm.
the fourth quarter of the year. So I'm really excited to watch him again. I think going up against his opponent and a veteran in white, like that's is a big step, and I'm
Yep.
interested to see how he handles it. I think he will handle it no problem. So I'm excited to watch him. And then bullish on Diego Pacheco. I may be
Yeah. Mhm.
biased there because I've seen Diego now since he was a hot shot prospect, and I've kind of watched his ascension, and I really want to see him against the top title contenders that I think he belongs in the ring with now.
Mhm.
So I would love to see, him against the Hamza Shiraz,
Oh, yeah.
and and Diego's high on my list, and Zaquin Moses,
Yep.
who's a very impressive
Mhm.
young kid. Only a couple of years ago, he was in high school, and I think he's the real deal. I think he has all the tools as well. When you were sparring Shakur, his cousin, and Ray Ford and Nishant Dev
Mhm.
regularly in your home gym, yeah, you're going to be a tough go at whatever weight class you're competing at. So I'm excited to see how Zaquim Moses navigates his career here, and trying to think. I mean, Abdullah Mason and
Mhm.
Shushu Carrington goes without
Yep.
saying. I think as of right now, yeah. I mean, I don't want to leave anybody out, but like, yeah,
Mhm.
Amari Jones is looking terrific in
Mhm.
his short time as a pro as well. So I'm excited to see how far he goes in especially a short amount of time as he builds up his career here. So I can keep going. I love watching prospects. I really do.
Yeah.
Like the heartbeat in me with boxing is like watching the young fighters just starting out. Maybe it's because of the nature of what I do. Like I call a lot of the
Mhm.
prelims, and naturally, when you start your career, you're going to be on the prelim show. So
Mhm.
I often tell those fighters, hey, like after three, four times, like, man, I don't want to see you here anymore.
Yeah.
I don't want you coming back
Mhm.
to our before the bell shows, our prelim shows, and that's when I like to watch them take off and just make a career for themselves. So um, I love talking about prospects.
Those are some great names, and I'm excited to see all of them continue their career. Justin, last question. Again, I appreciate your time here. Kind of stepping away from boxing. Obviously, Yankee guy. I'm a Yankee fan as well. Can you just give me and any Yankee fans listening a little outlook on what the rest of the season is going to look like, or what you think this Yankee team has? Obviously, going through a rough period, but what's your outlook on the rest of the season?
I always keep my focus on the pitching. I'm a
Mhm.
pitching, I don't want to call it pitching junkie, but I just love the pitching part of baseball. And look, they lost Garrett Cole before the season. They lost Clark Schmidt uh, at some point in the season. They didn't start the season with him. They lost Luis Heel, the reigning rookie of the year, up until
Mhm.
early August. That's three-fifths of the rotation that you were counting on. If they don't make the playoffs, I think you're going to point to them not having enough pitching in the end. The bullpen moves that they
Mhm.
made at the trade deadline, they were terrific. I don't know, again, if the starting pitchers that they do have don't pick it up, and this most recent turn and a half through the rotation,
Yeah.
you have starters not pitching past not getting outs in the sixth or seventh
Yeah.
inning, that's eventually going to lead to your bullpen being exhausted. I don't care who you bring in or the type of
Mhm.
caliber reliever that you do have in the bullpen, which again, I think the Yankee bullpen now could be elite if everyone is able to catch their breath.
Mhm.
I haven't seen it yet, and I just wonder what not getting a starting pitcher at the trade deadline is going to do for the rotation as it's currently constituted. I think you by not getting a starting pitcher, you probably added more pressure on the shoulders of Max Fried and Carlos Rodon.
Yeah.
And look, they should be able to handle the pressure. But what
Mhm.
will it eventually look like? There's a certain number of innings that teams need to reach to get through a regular season. I don't know if the Yankees are going to effectively reach that number in the way that they want. But this team always finds a way to get us excited again and reignite us,
Mhm.
especially in the last couple of months of the season, especially in September. So I'm not counting them out. I'm curious right now. I know they
Mhm.
went through a rough stretch, but I'm curious to see how their pitching performs over the next 45 plus games. But I have a question for you. I mean, you're from the
Yeah.
Dallas area. How'd you become a
Mhm.
Yankee fan?
My parents are from Syracuse, New York, so my dad's a diehard Yankee fan. So I grew up nothing but Yankee games on in my household. Number two is my favorite number because Derek Jeter's my favorite athlete ever. So it's been, diehard Yankees. I've had to hear it from Ranger fans when they beat us in the ALCS in the early 2010s. I had to hear it from them in 2023 when they won the World Series. The classic Yankee comeback is we got 27. Calm down with year one. But no, yeah, the Yankees, I'm an all New York guy, believe it or not. Yankees, Jets, Knicks. The Yankees have worked out better out of those three over the past 10 years of watching sports though.
Absolutely, and yeah, always wave the championship amounts in the faces of your Ranger friends, but also point out 1996 to them as well. That was a really good Texas Ranger team that
Mhm.
the Yankees beat and stopped their season. That when I think about the Texas Rangers, that's the group I think about. They were always in the Yankees' way in the late 90s during that dynasty, and the Yankees took care of business each time.
That'll be my new
So
comeback.
that's
I'm sure,
that's something you throw in the face of your Ranger friends.
100%. Justin, thank you so much for the time here. This has been incredible. I just want to thank you. Thank you for taking time. Pleasure talking to you today.
Luke, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, man. And don't be a stranger.
Absolutely. Justin Shackil, everybody, the one and only. Thank you again, Justin. Have a great day.
Take care.